So what expected return should I assume when estimating how much my investments might grow over the next 30 years? We see in the media quite a variation of expected returns. Vanguard, for example, in their published expectations have wound them back significantly. So they have a general expectation that the next 30 years won't look as rosy as the last 30 years. And so in planning for a future investment, you need to make some assumptions around returns. And there's no doubt about it, the last 15 years in particular has been a golden period. So you shouldn't expect to see those type of returns turn up year in, year out. I generally like to look at expected returns relative to inflation. And so a high growth portfolio should be capable in the long term of giving you inflation plus 6%. A more conservative portfolio might give you inflation plus 2 or 3. It's clearly not going to give you that every year, but over time that's a reasonable expectation. Over the last 15 or 20 years you might have generated 9 or 10% on a high growth portfolio with 80 or 90% or even 100% growth assets. That's not necessarily sustainable. And to some extent it's the variability of those returns rather than the precise number that really matters. So the difference between getting an expected 9% return where it's almost always between 7 and 11 will give you a completely different outcome than the real world where the Australian Stock Exchange may very well have delivered an average of 13% over the last 122 years. But it's been negative in 1 out of every 4 of those years, and an investor who invested on the 1st of January 1901 would have generated an actual return of 10%. So be very careful of assumptions. Sure, we have to make them for planning purposes, but it's actually the variability that makes it almost as big a difference as the core return that you expect. And so what you should be looking at is a probability of achieving your goal rather than trying to develop a point estimate for what it might look like in 30 years.